Okay. So once again, welcome you all to today's session on topic search, seizure, and arrest. And to address this session, we have CA Mohit Gupta, sir. Okay. So before handovering the session to sir, I will give a brief introduction about him. You would be knowing it, but since it is uh, okay, so it's better to introduce those who are joining for the first time. Okay, so sir is a practicing chartered accountant and lawyer. He is a co-opted member of Indirect Tax Committee of NIRC of ICAI. He is involved in transactional advisory practice, having a rich experience of several years of working in top-tier indirect taxation advisory firm of India, APRA and Associates, and Lakshmi Kumar and Sridharan. So, sir is taking more sessions. In fact, he is with a mission of sharing knowledge to every taxpayers, tax consultant, and students, so that the complex GST can be understood in a very simple language, and every compliance can be improved. So, in fact, it is a kind of knowledge sharing to all the consultant as well as to the government also, because once you know the law, then your compliance will be better, and it will benefit the government itself. Okay, so over to Mohit Gupta, sir, since we already taken more time. Okay, you can start your session, sir.
Thank you so much, Ganeshan ji, and thank you so much to Online Tax Update. I think because of Ganeshan ji and Online Tax Update, all of us are here together today to discuss on this topic. And we'll try to keep this an interactive session. So if anyone has any query related to the topic, we'll try to discuss it there and then. Only request I have is if anyone has any query, so whenever we are discussing any topic, if you have any query related to any other topic related to today's topic, but the point which we are not discussing at that time, so all those queries will take up at the end. All the queries which are related to the topic which we are discussing. So whenever I conclude a subtopic, so I'll take a pause for 1 minute, and when whatever queries any participant have, we can have that query then and there only. So we'll try to make this session as interactive as possible. So I'll just share my screen. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So friends, topic for today is search, seizure, and arrest. We'll also discuss some ancillary provisions related to these three things, if time permits. But so these topics, I feel that, as Ganeshan ji was saying, that these are not as discussed as some of the other provisions of GST. So ITC, GSTR 99C, on these kind of topics, you will find lot many webinars. But these topics of search, seizure, arrest, comparatively, very less webinars are there. But practically, if you see, there in lot many cases now, department has become very aggressive. So cases of search, seizure, and arrest have been rising at a very exponential rate ever since GST has been introduced. So in past 9-10 years, the number of cases where search has been done, seizure has been done, arrest has been done, they have increased exponentially. So earlier only income tax officers used to be very active in these search, raid, these kind of cases. But nowadays, GST as well as Customs Department, they have also become very, very active. So as a professional, we have to be very vigilant. So as a tax professional, we have to, first of all, we have to know, because unless and until we know the law, we cannot guide anyone. So as a tax professional, you should first know what are the rights of a taxpayer, what are the responsibilities of a taxpayer. And similarly, what are the rights of a tax professional and responsibility of a tax professional? Because this is one of those areas wherein it is equally important to know your own rights and responsibilities. Because in a lot of cases, let's say you are a chartered accountant, or you are an advocate, or you are a tax professional, you are sitting at a client's place, and at that time itself, the department comes. So as a tax professional, what is your responsibility? If they ask you to give your laptop to them, whether you are obligated to do so, whether you are also obligated to give them your password. or if search and seizure is going on and client calls you and asks you to come. So whether the department can grant you entry, or if a client is being summoned by the department to give their statement, whether you can accompany that client and assist them in giving the statement. So lot many questions are there where as a professional you also have to know your right and your obligation and what kind of safeguards are in place for a chartered accountant, for an advocate, or for any other tax professional who are working for client in these kind of matters. So all these things are very important to note if you want to work in search, seizure, or arrest cases. So broadly, what we will be discussing today: power of inspection, search and seizure, importance of reason to believe, power to arrest under Section 69 vis-a-vis prosecution provisions given in Section 132. Then summons in presence of advocates or chartered accountants during recording of statement. Then penalty and provisional attachment of bank account, and then lastly Rule 86A, which talks about ITC ledger blocking. So first we'll start with the power of inspection. So inspection, although we are not discussing inspection in depth today because that is not our topic, but inspection is the mildest provision. If you see the complete provisions from Section 67 to Section 70, so inspection is comparatively the mildest provision. So we should have the basis to know the basic provision, then we'll move on to search and seizure. So what does Section 67 say? So Section 67 subsection 1 says where the proper officer has reason to believe that there is suppression of a transaction relating to supply. So what are the prerequisites? First of all, there should be a reason to believe. What is the meaning of reason to believe? That we'll discuss shortly. So first of all, the proper officer has to have reason to believe. Then there should be a suppression. So there should be a proof that a transaction is actually suppressed by the assessee. So merely any mistake or merely missing to that will not qualify as a suppression. Suppression always means that there is a malified intent by the assessee to hide a transaction. Only then this section can be triggered. Relating to supply. So there has to be a taxable supply. So even if you have some unaccounted goods, they might not qualify because there is no supply, or any inadmissible ITC has been claimed. So, for example, any fake invoice was issued without any underlying supply of goods or service, and ITC has been claimed, or contravention of acts or rules to evade tax. So, in this, to evade tax is very, very important because contravention CDST Act is a very big act. There are a lot many provisions, so it is possible that any assessee may contravene any provision willingly or unwillingly. But only those kind of contravention wherein the intention is to evade any tax. So, for example, let's say a taxpayer has issued some invoice incorrectly, or he has not issued e-invoice. So, legally he was obligated to issue invoice, but he has not done so. So, even though there is a contravention of provision, but there is no intention to evade tax because he has issued a tax invoice, he has disclosed it in its GSTR1, GSTR3, so proper tax has been paid. So only those contravention where the intention is to evade any sort of tax, that contravention will be covered in Section 67. And what places can be inspected under Section 67 subsection 1? So first is place of business of taxable person. So that means place of business which is declared as place of business by the taxable person in their GST registration. So either the principal place of business or additional place of business, both are covered within the term place of business. So those place of business or transporter. So and owner or operator of a warehouse or godown. So the owner, operator of a warehouse or transporter, if they are registered, then they will get covered in the first term itself, taxable person. But even if they are not registered, so let's say the transporter is a small transporter, he was not required to get registered in GST. They were not required to take GST registration, but still they are dealing, they are transporting the goods of other persons. So still they are required to, their place can be inspected. So both the transporters as well as owner or operator of a warehouse, because the basic intent behind this provision is if a taxable person is suppressing goods, they are moving some goods for which tax invoice is not issued. So transporter is also might also be complicit in that transaction. and then any other place. So they have given a very, very wide power to the government. So if proper officer has reason to believe that there is any other place wherein some goods are being hidden or some other documents are being hidden, so those places can also be inspected, although that has to be very, very, very strictly seen. So there are a lot many judgments which have held that if department is going to any other place other than the declared place of business of taxable person, so department have to be very, very vigilant. It is not open to department to just go to any place which is not declared by the taxable person. Department must have a very good reason to believe that that place is actually relevant to their proceedings. Then next we come to section 67 subsection 2. So in inspection ends in section 67(1). What does inspection say is the tax officer can go and inspect the place of business. There is no other power in section 67 subsection 1. If he finds any contravention, then subsequently he can either search the premise, seize the goods, or initiate an audit, initiate an inquiry, or issue a show cause notice. So though all those provisions are governed by separate sections. So, when we are reading these kind of provisions, every provision we have to see very carefully that within each section, what are the powers and what are the restriction on each officer. So under 67 subsection 1, they can only come and inspect the place of business. If department starts, they go from there and they start demanding information. So you have to ask the department under which section you are asking me for information. Because if they are starting audit, they have to issue ADT 1 under section 65. If they want to issue you a AS 10, then under section 61, so they have to issue a AS 10. If they want to record your statement, they have to give us summons under section 70. So it is very important because many times I've seen that taxpayer receives a letter from GST department saying that submit so and so and so and so information, and they go and submit that information. But in that letter, there is no official section mentioned, nothing mentioned that under which section, which type of proceedings are taking place. So that is very important to note because every type of proceeding has separate powers, different powers. So in a audit, section 65 audit, department have different powers. Under section 70 summons, department has different powers. So unless and until you as a taxpayer or you as a tax professional know which type of proceedings are initiated by the department, how will you defend the client? How will you go and tell the department, okay, this is not in your power? First of all, you have to ask the department that first tell me which kind of proceedings are being started, under which section you are demanding me the information. So moving on to section 67 subsection 2, seizure, search and seizure. So section 67 subsection 2 provides that where a proper officer not below the rank of joint commissioner. So this is very, very important that reason to believe which has to be formed by a person who is at the rank of joint commissioner or above. So superintendent, inspector, ETO, VAT officer, all those officers, they do not have the power to form reason to believe. So whenever any document, so we'll also discuss this in detail later, but if you are asking, if you have, let's say, assessee has gone to court and court has compelled the department to give the reason to believe. So that reason to believe statement has to be signed by an officer, JC or above. If any superintendent has signed those statement, then the entire proceedings become null and void. So any officer with the rank of JC or above, they should have a reason to believe that the goods are liable for confiscation or any books, document, things which are useful to any proceedings under the CDST Act are being secreted. So we'll discuss one by one. So goods are liable for confiscation. So what goods are liable for confiscation? That list is given in section 130 of CDST Act. What does section 130 says? 130 is also again a very broad section. So 130 says that if any goods are being supplied or received in contravention of any act with the intention to evade tax, or any assessee is not able to account for any goods. So let's say department comes to you for, so let's say in your business premises, you have goods worth rupees 1 crore. But if you see your books of accounts, you only have goods versus 80 lakhs. So 20 lakhs is amount worth of unaccounted goods are there. So if any such kind of goods are present, then those goods are liable for confiscation under section 130. And if department has reason to believe that you have such kind of goods. So in the example which I gave, department will get to know that those goods are liable to confiscation only after they search your premises. But department should have a reason to believe first. Only if they have reason to believe that there are some goods which are liable for confiscation, only then they can start the search and seizure proceedings. So this happened in one case of ours, wherein department came, they searched the premises, they found a mismatch between the physical goods and the goods as per our financial statements. Then they issued summons, they issued show cause notices, all those proceedings got started. And when we took department to court in that case, and we asked for the reason to believe. So department gave the reason that there was a mismatch in your physical book and physical goods and the goods which are there in your books of accounts. So we argued before the Honorable High Court that the reason to believe should exist before the search proceedings are initiated. If there is a mismatch between physical stock and book stock, that you will get to know only after the search proceedings are initiated. But as per section 67, there should be first a reason to believe, and on that basis of reason to believe, only then the proceedings can be started. So a prior reason to believe duly recorded in writing and signed by an officer, JC or above, it has to be present. If that is not present, then the whole proceedings of search and seizures are null and void. Similarly, in second part of this line, any document, books, things which are useful to any proceedings are being secreted. First of all, those documents should be useful to any proceedings, and they should be useful to the proceedings of the person department is investigating. So let's say department goes to warehouse of a person A. In their premises, they believe that some books of accounts or some documents are related to person B also. So department cannot go and search the premises of person A for checking the documents of person B. Department can only go and check the documents of person A. And suddenly, department should have a reason to believe that documents or books are secreted. So they should be hidden. If the department goes to a premises and all the books of accounts, all the books, all the diaries, all they are there in open, either in a physical form or in a virtual form, they are not hidden. Then they cannot do the search or seizure proceedings. So if this is the case, then department can search the premises and they can also seize the books. Alternatively, in some cases where it is not possible for the department to seize the goods because either the goods are very voluminous or it is very difficult to move those goods from premises of the assessee. So in that case, department can also give you an order for non-removal of those goods. So basically, those goods are effectively seized, but the physical custody remains with the assessee only. So assessee has a sort of a restraining order where assessee is restrained from parting with the goods. So those goods remain with the assessee, but assessee is not assessee cannot remove those goods unless and until that non-removal order is rescinded by the department. And any documents or books. So if any goods are seized, then proper proceedings will go on under section 130, and from there the goods will get released. Any documents or books, if they are being seized, then department can retain those documents or books as long as those are necessary for any inquiry proceedings. So practically that typically happens to show cause notice. Once a show cause notice is issued by the department, taking all the relied upon documents, RUDs, as annexure to that show cause notice. So after that, usually it is presumed that necessity of those documents and books have been is finished. So department has to return those all the documents and books. If they're not returning, they should have a reason for not returning. They have to then prove that these documents are still relevant for this or some other inquiry. So we have judgment of Mrs. Rajiv Traders by the Allahabad High Court, wherein the term secreted was discussed. So they held that the word secreted, on a plain interpretation also, it would mean that goods have to be hidden or not disclosed to the authorities under the self-assessment regime. So it has to be a very clear fact that those goods were hidden. If they are sitting in the open, they have been disclosed to the department, and department has not paid attention to them, then that is not the fault of the assessee. It cannot be said that those goods are secret. And and any presumption. So let's say some books of accounts are, for example, a taxpayer has some other place of business which is not declared by the taxpayer in its GST registration. And at that place, assessee has some documents. So that is a very reasonable presumption that those documents are secreted because they are kept at a location which is not disclosed to the GST authorities, and assessee was obliged to report that location. So that presumption can be taken, but one very important principle which Allahabad High Court gave, that all the presumptions which are being taken, all the presumptions are rebuttable. So if assessee can provide a genuine reason that why it did not disclose that place of business, then that presumption can always be rebutted, and the assessee can claim that those goods are not secret. And then we have judgment of Gujarat High Court in the case of Golden Cotton Industries, wherein they held that goods can be seized even if there is a reason to believe that goods are liable to be confiscated or likely to be secreted. So it is not necessary that goods are secreted right now. If there is a good reason to believe that goods will be likely to be secreted, then also goods can be seized. So I'll give an example. So let's say the assessee is moving a truck uh, which has some goods, and there is no invoice, there is no e-bill, no document along with those uh, goods which are being moved, and the route on which that truck is going, uh, the assessee does not have any place of business on that particular route. So in that case, it is a very reasonable presumption that those goods which are liable to be confiscated because they are being moved without proper documents. So they are in contravention of that. So they are liable for confiscation under section 130. And since they are moved without any documents, and that is on a route on which assessee do not have any place of business. So that is a very reasonable presumption in that particular situation, which department can take, that those goods are likely to be secreted. So in that case, they can seize those goods by giving this reason that these goods are likely to be secreted. Again, we have one more judgment in case of Durga Prasad versus HR Gomes by Honorable Supreme Court. So there also, the term secreted was interpreted to mean that secreted means they should be hidden or concealed. So either they are not kept in the normal place of business, they are hidden, or they are kept at a place which is not declared by the taxpayer, and he was required to declare. So in those cases, it can be said that those goods, those books of accounts are secreted. Then we have another judgment, Shivnath Prasad and others versus State of Bihar. So there also Supreme Court held that even if a place is not disclosed, still search and seizure can be made at those premises, provided department has a good reason to believe. But department has a very onerous, strict responsibility in that case, like we were discussing earlier. So in that case, if department has a good reason to believe, they can go and search the premises. But if they do not find any information or any books in that place, then that can be treated as a trespass by the department. So that is again a very serious implication. So before going to any place which is not declared as place of business, department also has to be very careful. Then one very interesting question which comes up is, can the department also go to office of a CA? So for example, there is a client XYZ, his premises were searched, and department came to a conclusion that there is some irregularities in the books of accounts of XYZ. They are doing some tax evasion. and their books of accounts, which are maintained by some chartered accountant. So department wants to go and search the premises of that chartered accountant. So legally speaking, department is empowered to do so, but two, three safeguards. So first of all, because that CA will usually be handling a lot of other clients also, which do not have any relation to XYZ. So even if department goes and searches the premises of a chartered accountant, they cannot use any information other than XYZ. So any information relating to any client other than XYZ, that information department cannot use. They cannot take a copy of that. They cannot take laptop of that. They can only go and take information related to XYZ. And we have again one very interesting case of EY, Ernst and Young. So what happened in one case is some employees of EY was sitting at a client place. At that time, department came for search and seizure, and they also seized the laptops of employees of EY, and those laptops were password protected. So department asked the employees to open the laptop, give them the password and open the laptop, and employee refused to do so. And so that case went up to High Court, and High Court held that they do not have, first of all, they cannot compel any person to give a password. So even if they seize your laptop, but it is password protected, then department cannot compel any person to give the password to them. And even if department, let's say the laptop is not password protected, or laptop department is able to crack the password encryption and they are able to get in the laptop, even in that case, department can only use the information pertaining to that specific client. Department cannot use any information in that laptop pertaining to any other client. So I think these were the major questions, that whether laptops or desktops can be seized. So yes, they can be seized, but an assessee cannot be compelled to give their password, because we have a universal, every Indian citizen has a universal right against self-incrimination. So you cannot compel some person to give evidence against himself. So asking them to give you their password to open their laptop, that is a form of self-incrimination. So no one is obliged to give you their, no one is obliged to give their password to department for opening their own laptop, even if they have been seized. Having said that, practically we have seen in most of the cases, if laptop or desktop of a client is seized, it is always better to give the password, because if you do not give the password, that is typically seen as non-cooperation. Whereas if you give the password, you are treated as a cooperating client. So that thing depends on case-to-case basis, that what kind of data is there on that laptop. If there is some confidential data, then then you can talk to department accordingly, that I can give you the password, but this is some confidential data which I cannot share. So all those things depend on case-to-case basis. And is the assessee entitled to take copies or backups? Second question, I think we have discussed. Third question, assessee is always entitled to take copies or backups. So if any laptop is being seized, assessee can always go to the department and say that let me take a copy of the data which is there in the laptop, because that data might be required by the assessee for their day-to-day function. So department cannot just seize a document, seize a laptop and refuse to give backup or refuse to give copy of the same. So if it is a physical document which is being seized by the department, they can, assessee can go and ask for photocopy. If it is a laptop, they can go and ask for the backup. The next important limb of section 67 is reason to believe. So as per section 26 of Indian Penal Code, what is reason to believe? A person is said to have a reason to believe a thing if he has sufficient cause to believe that thing, but not otherwise. So what does it mean? We again have a very important judgment in case of Pratap Singh versus Director of Enforcement by Honorable Supreme Court, wherein they said that expression reason to believe does not mean subjective satisfaction of the officer. It does not mean that if there is some officer ABC and he says that, in my view, this is sufficient reason to believe that this person has done some wrong, he has secreted some information, suppressed some information. That subjective satisfaction of officer is not enough. That reason should be there in good faith. It cannot merely be a pretense, and it is not irrelevant for the purpose of this section. So, what does it mean? In normal practical terms, what does it mean? So, in normal practical terms, it means that if a reasonable, there is some other person other than the tax officer, if you give all the facts, all the information to that person, then that person will also come to the same conclusion. So I'll give an example. So this happened in one case that one client, they had a warehouse in one state, but due to some issues, they were not able to get GST registration on that particular premises where they were storing the goods. Uh, they took GST registration at some other place, which was 60, 70, 80 kilometers far from their actual godown. So when they were moving the goods, so actual goods were moved from the factory, but in the e-way bill, the place on which GST registration was taken in e-way bill, that place was mentioned. So actual route was different, and e-way bill location mentioned in e-way bill was different. So so department noticed a mismatch in the toll data and e-way bill data, because e-way bill data is available with the department, and when that truck was crossing from their actual premises, a toll used to come, uh, which toll would not have come from their declared place of business. So this was a very clear, and this transaction was happening on a regular basis. So that client had a turnover of almost 100 crores. So during the year, there were almost 100 crore worth of sales, 100 crore worth of goods, which were moved in this way. And for each and every one of the case, the issue was seen that goods is moving through a route in which they are moving through a toll, which should not come in the route which is mentioned in the e-way bill. So there, the department came for search and seizure. So now, as per this section, what does it mean is that if there is a person, let's say XYZ person, who is a reasonable person, impartial person, who is not from department, who is not from taxpayer side, and you give this information to that person that there is a company who has turnover of 100 crore rupees. They all their e-way bill, they have been raised from place A to place B, or ABCD, from place A to various different places. Place A is declared as their godown. But if you see the toll data for all the 100 crore worth of goods, they have passed through this one particular toll, which does not fall in the route which is mentioned in the e-way bill. So then that person should also come to the same conclusion. Any reasonable person will come on to the same conclusion. Only then they will qualify as good reason to believe. If there is a confusion, that basis that information, a reasonable person will say that, okay, I think tax evasion may be possible, may not be possible. Then they are not a good reason to believe, because what does section 26 says? If he has sufficient cause to believe that thing, but not otherwise. So if there is a confusion that this is also possible, this is also possible, then that is not a good reason to believe. So it is not based on subjective satisfaction of the officer. There has to be a credible material. Material also has to be credible. So on the the document or information on which tax officer is relying, that information also has to be authentic. So there is one very good case of income tax. I'm not able to recall the name. So in that case, what happened is, the name of our assessee was featured in some magazine as the top 10 businessmen of this district or the state, and some estimated net worth was given that this assessee must have a net worth of this, and this must be the annual turnover. So basis that magazine, department serves the premises of the assessee, saying that we have only declared, let's say, 10 crore rupees, but as per that magazine, your turnover is 20 crores. So that case went up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that there is no credible material. If there is a person A doing this business and some person B comes and says that person A should have this much turnover, So basis that person B statement who does not have any basis to give that statement, you cannot rely on that statement. So there should be a credible material, and basis that credible material, there should be a sufficient reason to believe that some goods are liable for confiscation or some books are being secreted. So we have one very good judgment by Tata Chemicals given in case of customs. So what I was discussing, that there should be a subject credible material, and reasonable person should come on to the same conclusion. Merely subjective satisfaction of the officer is not sufficient to form the reason to believe. Again, we have judgment of Ganga Prasad Maheshwari. So there also same principles was reaffirmed by the Honorable Supreme Court, that the word reason means there should be a justification, and there should be enough good faith in that reason. So it cannot just be merely be used as a harassment tool or merely be based on the subjective satisfaction of the department. So this is the order of prohibition. So whenever any inspection or the search proceeding is conducted, so this kind of order in INS 03 can is given by the department, wherein they can either give the details of the goods which have been seized by them, or if they are giving a non-removal order. So there all those will also be mentioned here, that these are the kind of goods which are with you. So department usually also puts a seal on those goods, and then they give a non-removal order that these goods cannot be removed. And all the complete details, the description, quantity, make and mark of the model, all these things are mentioned in the INS 03. Then INS 02 is order of seizure. So if goods are seized, then they are given in INS 02. If they are non-removal order is given in INS 03. Whether cash can be seized. So then this is a very important question, because if let's say a GST authority is conducted search and seizure on some premises of an assessee, and they also found some unaccounted cash. So whether that can also be seized. So the basic purpose behind search and seizure proceedings is to gather information to determine whether any tax evasion was made or not. So unaccounted cash per se is not needed by the department to think. Department can count the cash, and that information can be mentioned that this much worth of unaccounted cash was recovered from the premises of the assessee, or discovered rather, not recovered, discovered at the premises of the assessee. So after that the purpose of cash is over. Department knows how much unaccounted cash is there. They can always ask the assessee, start proceeding and ask the assessee, give me the source of this cash, but there is no use to seize this cash. So in judgment of Kanishka Mata, Honorable MP High Court said that cash, because Section 67(2) gives power to seize any things. So it says documents, books, or things. So documents or books are separate thing. Things is a very wide term. Thing can include anything. So in case of Kanishka Mata, Honorable MP High Court held that things also include cash. Therefore, seizure of cash is also possible. But in that judgment, in my personal view, some very, very important arguments were not taken in that judgment, including the argument which I just discussed, that cash is not useful for any proceedings. Then there is no mechanism given in CGST law or any other taxation law for that matter to keep the seized cash. And if that theory is accepted, then any personal jewelry, any kind of asset can be seized by the department, which does not have any relevance to the ongoing proceedings. So we have a lot of other judgments as well, in which KM Food Infrastructure is the most relevant judgment. So therein, in all these judgments, it has been held that cash cannot be seized. Cash can only be counted and accounted by the department. They can take a declaration, or they can get a statement signed from the assessor that this much cash was recovered, which is typically mentioned in a Panchnama. So they can do that, but they cannot seize the cash. Then we have some guidelines issued for search and seizure by CBIC. So there should be a proper reason to believe, which should be duly recorded in the file, and search should also only be conducted by a professor having proper search authorization. Then for every search authorization, there has to be a DIN, so document identification number should be there. If that is not there, then that search authorization is null and void, and it cannot search authorization cannot be issued in the name of person who is dead. Only the person on whose name search authorization is issued, only premises of that person can be checked. In case of search of a residence, a lady officer has to be there. Two independent witness has to be there. So this is a very, very important requirement, that in case of any search and seizure, two independent witnesses who reside in the same locality, they have to be present. And Panchnama, so basically the name Panchnama came because of that only. So you in earlier times, usually the Panch of Sarpanch of a village, they usually were called for these kind of proceeding. So from there the name Panchnama came, that since Sarpanch is signing a document, that document was referred to as Panchnama. Then at the time of entering into premises, assessee has a legal, the department has a duty and assessee has a right to see the search authorization. They will not give the copy of search authorization to the assessee, but assessee can ask the department to see that search authorization. And in all those documents, those prima facie things department can check, and that is proper signed by officer with the rank of JC or above. There should be proper DIN. If those the documents are not there, assessee can refuse the department to enter the premises because that search authorization is not valid. The officers also have to identify themselves, and they also have to give their search. So if officer is coming to any assessee's premises, they also have to offer themselves for search to ensure that assessee is that tax officer, they are not bringing something to the premises of the assessee. So assessee has a legal right to search the tax officers whenever they come for search and seizure proceedings. Then after the search and seizure proceedings are concluded, a document called Panchnama is signed, wherein all the list of documents, goods or things which are recovered from the premises of the assessee, all the things are prepared, list is given in the Panchnama, and that is duly signed by the department, by the assessee, and by the two independent witnesses. And that also includes the fact that personal search of the officers which came for search proceedings, personal search of those officers was offered. In some sensitive cases, videography videos may also be made by the department officer, and that should also be recorded in the Panchnama. Then every page of Panchnama or every page of statement has to be signed by the person who has recorded that statement. So, and officer should immediately leave the premises as soon as Panchnama is signed. So that was the complete discussion regarding search and seizure. So if anyone has any doubts or questions regarding search and seizure, we can take that up. Otherwise, we will move on to the next topic. So any participants have any queries?
Participant can raise their hand, or they can ask their query or put it in chat box also.
Okay, so I think we'll move on to the next question, next portion.
Okay.
So power to summon. So then summon can be issued by proper officer to any person whom they deem is necessary for any inquiry under the Act to give any evidence or to give any statement or to produce any sort of document or things which are in their possession. one very important amendment which was introduced in 2024, subsection 1A was inserted, wherein it was mentioned that assessee can come himself or they can also send an authorized representative in the summons proceedings. But that is at the, again, it is very important to note, that is at the discretion of the proper officer. If the proper officer has issued someone in the name of assessee and he has not allowed the authorized representative to come, then assessee has to come personally. If the officer has allowed the assessee to send an authorized representative in his instead, then he can send anyone, including a chartered accountant or an advocate or any other professional he can send. But if that is not allowed by the department, then the assessee has to go himself. Then we have very long history of judgments on the question that whether at the time of recording of statement, CA or advocate are allowed to be present or not. So in this whole very long discussion. So the conclusion is, so we have very starting from judgment of Nandini Satpathy in the year 1987 to present time. We have a catena of judgments. The conclusion of those judgments is CA or an advocate can be have the right to be present within visible distance when the statement is being recorded, but not audible with not audible distance. So the purpose is that they can see when the statement is being recorded. They are allowed to see the assessee giving the statement to ensure that the assessee is not physically threatened by the department, but any professional or any authorized representative cannot assist the assessee in giving the statement. So they have to be beyond the audible range. So that statement has to be given by the assessee without any assistance whatsoever. But they can be with CA or lawyer can be within a visible distance to ensure that that assessee is not unusually or not physically threatened by the department. Then next we have prosecution, arrest and prosecution. So section 132 contains the list of offences for which any prosecution can be launched. So four offences. So all the offences which are there in section 132, those are generally non-cognizable and bailable. What is the meaning of that? That I'll discuss shortly. But four offences, four serious offences, they have been made cognizable and non-bailable. What are those offences? And that also when they are above 5 crores. So supply of goods or service without issue of any invoice. The goods are being sold via assessee, but invoice has not been issued or underbilling has been done. Issuing of invoice without any, issuance of invoice without any supply of goods. So bogus invoice or fake invoice has been issued, which have resulted in some availment or utilization of the fund of credit. Then availing ITC using such invoice, using such bogus or fake invoice, and collecting any amount as GST, but failing to pay the same to the government beyond a period of 3 months. So all these four offences, if any of these offences is committed and the amount of that offence is more than 5 crore, then that offence is cognizable and non-bailable. So what does it mean? So the cognizable and non-bailable means the police department or GST department for that matter, because they have been conferred the same power which is given to police for arrest provisions. So cognizable and non-bailable is a serious category of offences, which means that if any offence has been committed which is cognizable, so GST department is empowered to recognize that offence. So that means they can directly arrest the assessee, and within 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours of arrest, they have to reproduce that. They have to produce that assessee before the local magistrate, and that is a non-bailable offence. Which for bail you have to approach the court. Police cannot or department cannot grant you bail. For any bail, you have to go to the appropriate district court. Non-cognizable and bailable means that first of all, police cannot or GST department cannot act on your own. So let's say if any supply of goods has been made below 5 crores, so that is a non-cognizable and bailable offense. So that means that first of all, the police or the GST department, they have to first get a arrest warrant issued by a magistrate to arrest a assessee. They cannot go and directly arrest the assessee, and that is bailable. So bail can be comparatively easily granted in those cases. Practically, department usually does not arrest anyone for those offenses which are non-cognizable and bailable. Practically, in 99% of the cases, you will only find arrest being made in these four kind of cases where it is above 5 crores. Then the punishment. So when the tax amount involved is 1 to 2 crores up to 1 year, 2 to 5 crores up to 3 years, and above 5 crores up to 5 years. And fine is there in all the cases. And for second time offense or second time, third time, so basically any kind of repeat offender, they can be punished up to 5 years without any threshold limit. So all these limits are only applicable when it is your first offense. Then in Finance Act 2023, they have also decriminalized some provision, some offenses. So obstructing or preventing any officer from discharge of their duties, tampering with any evidence, failing to supply any information or giving false information. So all these offenses, they are still offenses. Penalties, fines can be levied, but prosecution cannot be launched for these kind of offenses anymore after the amendment in 2023. So when a person can be arrested. So again, there should be a reason to believe. Commissioner has to form that reason. So here the power is very, very strict because arrest is a very serious uh, activity. So the power is given only to the commissioner or any officer above commissioner to form that reason to believe. So the commissioner should have a reason to believe that a person has committed any of those offenses which are mentioned, which we have just discussed. So those four offenses and the amount exceeds 5 crore rupees. So if a commissioner has reason to believe that a person has committed this offense, then they can go and arrest the person. But within 24 to 48 hours, they have to produce that person before the local magistrate. So we also have some instructions issued by CBIC in this regard. So, so friends, usually what happens is, whenever any department comes for search or seizure proceedings, so arrest is used as a threatening tool. So even though department does not want to arrest the assessee, they threaten the assessee with arrest to recover tax amounts. So to prevent these kind of cases, instruction was issued by CBIC wherein they said that taxpayer can voluntarily pay GST admitted GST liabilities by DRC 3 before issue of show cause notice to avoid payment of interest, but recovery of tax is not allowed during search proceedings. So these instructions are again very, very confusing. So even the government wants to curb the practice, but these instructions does not help much. So we have many, many judgments of various high courts, wherein high courts have clearly held that whenever any payment is made during any kind of search or seizure proceedings, all those payments are automatically assumed to be in protest because that is a presumption taken by high court that whenever any certain search or seizure proceedings are going on and some tax payment has been made, that payment is made by pressurizing the assessee. So that can never be a voluntary payment. That is always a pressurized payment. So therefore, it should be always be treated as under protest payment. Then we have another instruction, instruction number 2 by 2223. So this is a very, very good circular, good instruction issued by CBIC. So a lot of good safeguards have been provided by CBIC in the circular. So first is arrest under CDST Act is not routine. So just because uh, someone commissioner has reason to believe that those offences has been committed, those four offences has been committed, amount is above 5 crore, automatically arrest should not be made if those conditions are satisfied. Arrest should only be made wherein department has a belief that the assessee will either run away or assessee will tamper with the evidence. So basically, department should have a belief that if assessee remains in the open, then he will tamper with the investigation or run away with the money, so that department will have some serious issue in future if that assessee is remains in the open. So only in those cases arrest is made. So arrest is always a prevention measure aimed at preventing tampering of the investigation. So only where assessee poses a serious risk to the investigation proceedings, or a risk of or assessee is a flight risk, or assessee is at the risk of disposing with his assets to avoid the recovery. So only in those kind of cases arrest can be made. Then proper arrest memo, compliance with CRPC, safeguard for women, medical examination, all those are very important processes. If those processes are not followed, then the arrest becomes null and void. Then within 24 hours, like we discussed, 24 hours, that person has to be produced before a magistrate, and that arrest has to be reported within 24 hours and has to be included in the monthly reports, and proper register, proper documentation should be maintained. So in normal cases, any these kind of compliances like maintaining reports, maintaining registers, these are treated as a procedural requirement. But in arrest cases, these are substantial requirements. So if this is not followed by the department, then the arrest proceedings become null and void. So then we have judgment of Make My Trip, very good judgment given by Delhi High Court, which was subsequently affirmed by Supreme Court. So there are also a lot of important principles were given by the Delhi High Court, uh, that adjudication proceedings and criminal prosecution can be done simultaneously. And again, in normal cases, department has to be, in very exceptional cases, department should go after the person unless and until that person is a habitual evader or a repeat offender. So that for the first time, the assessor should have maybe not filed return for a very long time, has a history with repeated default of fine. So all those things have to be proven by the department to say that this person is a flight risk. For each and every case where the assessee has committed offense, department cannot automatically assume that this person will tamper with the investigation. Another important principle which was laid by the Honorable Delhi High Court is that adjudication order is mandatory before arresting the assessee, because when can assessee be arrested? When he has committed one of those four offenses and the amount is above 5 crore. So in this case, Make My Trip argued that uh, uh, only above 5 crore arrest can be made. So how will you know that offense involves amount of offenses more than 5 crore? Only when adjudication is made, only when the show cause notice is issued and order is issued. Only then the department will get to know that the amount of offense is more than 5 crores. So Delhi High Court agreed that yes, order should be issued. Without issuance of order and quantification of demand, arrest cannot be made. So this judgment was given in service tax regime. Then we have judgment of PV Ramanna Reddy, followed by Vimali Yashwantagiri, by Telangana and Andhra Pradesh High Court, wherein High Court gave a contradicting view that the requirement of Section 69 is that the department should have a reason to believe that one of those four offences has been committed and amount is more than 5 crore. It does not anywhere require issuance of an adjudication order. So even without issuance of an order, if commissioner has valid reason to believe, then arrest can be made. So all this controversy was finally put to rest last year by the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in case of Radhika Agarwal. So therein, the Honorable Supreme Court has held that arrest can be made before the issuance of an adjudication order, provided valid reason to believe are present. And some other important uh, conclusions have also been given by the Supreme Court in this case. So, first of all, there was a challenge made to constitutional validity of arrest provision, saying that it is a taxation law. It cannot go into criminal law and empower the officer to arrest the assessees. So, there the Supreme Court has sided with the department and said that arrest provisions are implicit in a taxation law in the enforcement law. So, those provisions are constitutionally valid, but they must be based on an credible material, and they must comply with the constitutional safeguards. So we have a very important judgment in the case of DK Basu, wherein lot many safeguards have been provided. So maintenance of proper diary by a proper officer, which should be updated on a daily basis without any space in between, to avoid any kind of tinkering, backdating, all those to avoid all those kind of issues. Diary with continuous pages has to be maintained by the officer. So a lot of these kind of safeguards have been provided by the in the judgment of DK Basu. So all those safeguards have to be followed by the department. Otherwise, the arrest made by them will be considered null and void. Then the reasons to believe should be recorded. Arrested individuals should be informed in writing about the grounds for their arrest. So this again one very important principle which was laid down in Radhika Agarwal. So one is the ground for the arrest, one is the reason to believe. Radhika Agarwal held that both the things, ground for the arrest as well as reason to believe, has to be communicated to the assessee. If they are not communicated, then again the arrest will be treated as null and void. Then the arrested person, they have the right to meet an advocate during the interrogation, again within visible but not hearing distance. Uh, then, so again, I think most of the principles which we have already discussed. So, I think this was all regarding search, seizure, and arrest. I'll just take 4 5 minutes more to discuss on provisional attachment. Then we can conclude the session. So provisional attachment of bank account or credit ledger. So powers for this are given in section 83. So section 83 says that where during the pendency of any proceedings under section 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74, commissioner is of the opinion that it is necessary for purpose of protecting the interest of government revenue. So the department should, commissioner should, there should be a reason that if any attachment is not made, then it will negatively impact the recovery proceedings of the government. Only in those cases, provisional attachment can be made of any property, including bank account, including any movable property, any kind of property. And that will only be valid for the period of 1 year. Then we have some amendment was made to say that during the pendency or even after conclusion of the proceedings, section 83 can be used. Then I think this is not very important. Then last we have rule 86A. So rule 86A, what does it say? It says that any person, any commissioner or any officer authorized by him in this behalf, not below assistant commissioner, if they have reason to believe that the ITC which is available in the electronic credit ledger, that has been fraudulently availed or is ineligible by a reason of not coming in 2B. So as per rule 36, it is not coming in 2B. And because the vendor is either non-existent, not doing any business, registration is fake, or there is no receipt of goods or service, or any non-existent or incorrect invoice or debit note. So with these kind of serious offenses, so where the ITC has been irregularly availed, fraudulently irregularly availed, and that balance is lying in the electronic credit ledger. So in those cases, the credit ledger can be blocked by the department again for a period of up to 1 year, because this rule is issued in the power given under Section 83. So that block can only be made for 1 year. And after the commissioner is satisfied that their interest is safeguarded, then they can uh, remove the block, and again maximum 1 year it can be imposed. So we have one very good judgment of Raman, Metal and Alloys by Bombay High Court, wherein they said that negative blocking is not allowed. So what happened in this case? According to department, the amount which was fraudulently availed by the assessee was 1 crore rupees, but the amount which was lying in the electronic credit ledger of the assessee was only 60 lakh rupees. So as per rule, department can could only block 60 lakh rupees, but what department did is department blocked 1 crore rupees. So that negative 40 lakh reflected as a negative block in the electronic credit ledger. So that meant that if any let's say next month return, department assessee filed the 3B and he had some excess ITC in that particular month of 10 lakh rupees. So that future credit also got blocked because there was a negative block of 40 lakh standing in the electronic credit ledger. So Bombay High Court held that that is not allowed. Only the amount which is lying in the electronic credit ledger as on the date of passing of order under blocking order under 86A, only that balance can be blocked. Any future balance cannot be blocked. And then Shri Sai Ram Enterprises by Delhi High Court, wherein they said that this ITC blocking, they can only go on for 1 year. It cannot be blocked for more than 1 year. So if within 1 year department has not taken proper proceedings, that is not the fault of the assessee. Department has to vacate their electronic credit ledger block automatically after 1 year. So thank you everyone.
Okay, so we have, thank you, sir, for in-depth information on the topic. So it was very interesting and informative to listen all this 1 hour, 15 minutes. When the time passed, we couldn't understand because the discussion was so interesting. Okay, so we have, thank you, sir, for that.
Thank you, Ganeshan ji.
Yeah. So we have two queries. In fact, one Rohit Srivastava sir has raised a query. Rohit sir, you can ask your query directly.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Rohit ji.
Sir, the provision of 6711, the purpose of 67 subsection 11 is what? Is it offer direct seizure of books and accounts without going to the without following the procedure of inspection and without and search?
So inspection and search and seizure are independent proceedings. So inspection, it is possible to do search and seizure without doing inspection, but one of the things is mandatory. So either the department has to do inspection or they have to do search and seizure.
Suppose the department has called the dealer and he has produced some books of accounts, and after seeing the department officer goes finds that there is an intention to evade tax, then he can directly seize the account books which he has presented.
No, that is not allowed.
But the language of 6711 is not very clear that that officer has to go to the premises always. 6711 is an exception.
Going to premises is not required, but the precondition is those books of accounts are secreted. So when the assessee himself has gone and given those documents to the department, that means that those books of accounts are not hidden. So that information, those books can never ever be seized by the department. That is not allowed.
So further, sir, on the grounds of arrest and the 24 production of before the judicial magistrate within 24 hours is on, while is not limited to the only non-bailable offence as given in the act, but it should be to all the arrested person. This is the constitutional mandate.
So for bailable offences, department has to first go to the magistrate and get an arrest warrant. So that is the difference. For bailable offences, first magistrate approves, only then an arrest warrant is issued and only then arrest is made. In case of non-bailable offences, department can directly arrest the assessee but then within 24 hours, they have to produce that person before the magistrate. So that is why that provision is only for non-billable offences. For billable, the magistrate first has to approve the arrest of a person.
Thank you.
Okay. We have another query from Yelumale sir. Sir, you can directly ask, sir. Though you have posted your query in the chat box, if you would like to ask, you can ask.
Sir, good evening, sir. How are you, sir?
Fine, sir. How about you, sir?
Fine, sir. Mohit Gupta, sir. You are very social media fastly growing, sir, nowadays. Continuously update your all India taxation, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much for support and sharing knowledge to everyone. Thank you so much for all. Sir, I have one doubt, sir. Not related to this today topic. I have another doubt. GST audit was completed for financial year 22-23 under section 65. Now under section 61, now tax officer issue ASM notice for same para ITC mismatch. This notice is valid or invalid, sir?
Sir, if it is issued on the same issue which was
Yeah, same
covered in
issue.
the audit,
Yeah.
and that observation is in writing. So 65 audit, either that observation is in the ADT2 final audit report.
Yeah.
Then same observation cannot be raised by the department again.
But department not accepting those sort of replies, sir. Audit always completed by you are seeing same notice and all. Value also more. Some 10 crores around.
So again, this is a practical reality of the situation that a lot many times what is not legally allowed, department practically does it anyway. So in this case, the only solution remains is either go to tribunal or high court, because those are the only forums which usually.
Both are central only, sir. Not state and central, not splitting. Both are same only. Same
If both are same, then also see in service tax, at the time of service tax and excise, CBIC issued a very good instructions, wherein all these cases were detailed. That once audit has been done, subsequent proceedings on same issue cannot be initiated again, unless and until some specific intelligence is there. So in service tax regime, there was a specific circular on this effect. In GST, no such circular or instruction has been issued till now. So this
I
is
think
a
there is a judgment also, sir.
but high courts have generally given relief in these kind of cases. Whenever SSCs have gone, high courts have generally provided relief in these kind of cases.
So, okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So sorry to sir, in 67(2) there is the provision for this for the one must refer to the goods or books or account are secreted at any place. But in 67(11) there is no such mention of the secretion.
Hello.
Sir, in 67(2) there is a specific finding of secretion of place has to be given. But 67(11) does not talk of about any secretion. Whenever the officer seeing the books of account finds that there is the chances of evasion to tax, then he can seize without following the procedure of given as in 67(2).
So let me just open the 67 subsection 11. So 6711 says that where the proper officer has reasons to believe that any person has evaded or is attempting to evade the payment of any tax, he may, for the reasons to be recorded in writing, seize the accounts, registers, or documents of such person produced before him, and shall grant a receipt for the same, and shall retain the same for so long as may be necessary in connection with any proceedings under this act or the rules made under thereunder for prosecution. So, sir, first of all, in this case also, in this case, the burden of proof is even heavier, because here the department proper officer should have a reason to believe that that person has evaded a tax. So, like we discussed earlier, reason to believe means they should be based on a credible material. A normal, reasonable person should come to the same conclusions. They have to be recorded in writing before initiating any action. So all those conditions have to be satisfied. Only then we can say that the proper officer had a reason to believe, and that reason to believe should be there to say that the person has evaded the tax. So officer, if some professional or some client is going to the department, so officer cannot say that based on your books of accounts, I suspect that you are evading some tax, so therefore I will seize your books of accounts. That is not allowed. Department should have some credible material to form reason to believe that tax is actually evaded.
But suppose the department finds has a sufficient reasons, मतलब strong credible material, then this 6711 can be adopted without following the procedure of 6712.
Theoretically, it can be applied, although practically, never, never ever seen this 6711 being used by the department.
Yes.
Practically, department only goes in section 67.1 or 67.2.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit.
Okay. So next query comes from Balaram sir. Sir, you can ask who you have put in the question. If you want, you can directly answer. Balaram sir, are you there? Okay, so his query is posted in the chat box as whether the audit under section 65 can be taken even though it is completed under section 67 for the same period.
67 and 65 are completely separate proceedings. So if a assessee, some search and seizure proceedings had been made for the assessee, that does not preclude the department from doing an audit for the same assessee. So that is allowed. Those are completely independent and separate proceedings.
Okay, so these were the query. So any other participant would like to ask question, or I think we have time to conclude now. So if you have any query, you can right now ask. Any participants?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yes.
Good evening.
This is Shivkumar from Chennai. See, sir, can you able to hear, sir?
Yes, sir, please.
Sir, actually, my client received a notice with Rule 86A for 1,26,000 ITC. ITC. So the customer not able to identify the bills. Is not able to identify whether payment made in the bank statement down. So the notice letter kept pending for 2-3 months. Later department directly issued notice under section 74(5) fraud case. So later they blocked the ITC also nearly to the tune of 1,26,000. So it is received by DRC 01A notice. Intimation actually.
Pre-show cause intimation.
Yes, sir. So based on that intimation, customer has paid that 1,26,000 plus with interest and penalty 15%. So after making payment, the department had given only DRC 01A part B only. Just they have mentioned we have accepted your this thing and all. So apart from this, any order they will put for dropping this notice or what, sir?
No, sir, they will not give anything else because it is a pre-show cause notice intimation only. So no order is issued only if the show cause notice has been issued.
Okay, okay.
Part
Sir,
B.
one more thing, sir. So actually the 1,26,000 they had blocked from the credit ledger. Then how they will unblock that amount, sir? ITC.
You can just write a letter to them giving proof of that payment in DRC 3 and DRC 1B, saying that the amount has been paid. So the credit ledger block should be removed.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next query comes from Sanand sir. Yeah, what is the maximum time where can a proper officer retain books or things or any other items seized from taxpayer? And what is the proper procedure for officer to return back the documents seized?
So there is no maximum period defined in GST law. So essentially, you can say till the time officer has legal time limit to issue a show cause notice. till that time he can retain the documents. And proper procedure is usually officer can give back the goods, documents or books, and have that acknowledged from the assessee that you have received back those goods. So there is no proper procedure defined as such. Practices vary from place to place.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. So we'll better time. Okay, I think it is 4:30. Thank you so much, Mohit sir, for sharing so much insightful session. This topic seems to be only 3 words: search, seizure, and arrest. But in depth, so much of PPT in that, so much of information you have discussed with us. Very minute thing also you have discussed. So reason to believe definition, I think every audience is able to understand what is the meaning of reason to believe. In such a detail you have explained it with an example also. Okay, so we will have more session like this. And thank you so much to the participant also who have patiently heard for this time. And all the participants right from the beginning to the end, they are same. So that much interesting the topic was. Thank you once again to audience and Mohit sir for taking the session.
Thank you so much, Ganeshan ji. I think because of online tax update only, this session was